The theme is very interesting and very appropriate for APHRC because looking at hand in hand, really, to me, it means partnership. And that is what we work with very much at APHRC, working with policymakers, working with the communities, and how researchers work together, because you have to make sure that you really work together. And at APHRC, we believe that for research, it goes beyond the beautiful reports that we publish, but we have to make significant contributions in the community, because we believe that it's not just about spending our time and our money, but coming up with real solutions. And that is where we work, hand in hand with the communities to be able to come up with tangible solutions which are going to be useful in that community. And looking at better foods, we are also looking at, as we are eating today, as we're producing today, what about the future? We don't just eat today and we don't think about our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and how we're going to leave this planet. So as we're eating, even whatever production method that we are employing, we have to make sure that we are making sure that we are taking care of this planet, because there's a phrase I always use that, we don't have another planet. This is the only planet that we have. So we have to make sure that we take care of it, because if we destroy it, then we have destroyed it for ourselves and for future generations.
Yeah, I really love the theme, very inspiring, and in our terms we call it collaborative action, and we feel this is at the core of our interventions all over the country and all over the globe. Wherever you find Welthungerhilfe working, we always promote partnerships with the communities, of course, first and foremost. We're going very deep into the community relationships with our interventions. We have partners in the county governments and the county structures, and we cooperate with the private sector. Research institutions are part of it. And we really believe the fight against hunger is so big and so complex that we can only be one when we work in partnerships with other stakeholders that are like-minded and have the same mission at their heart.
The theme aligns with our vision of a citizen-led public accountability for good governance, and therefore we believe when we come together we will have better food policies, and everybody will have enough food on their table.
Yes, for us really, agroecology is something that we embrace very much, because this is where you're making sure that you're championing for nature-based solutions, because this is working with nature. So making sure that whatever that you're working with, you are not destroying the planet. So that is why we champion for agroecological practices.
Here in Kenya we have 12 offices all over the country, and through these offices we have staff employed in the regions, in Turkana, in Marsabit, in Tana, Kajiado, Makindu, Kitui, and also in Western Kenya. And through our staff we collaborate very closely with usually the county government structures, be it the agricultural department, the water department, the social departments, and we organize capacity building together for the communities in the regions, and we bring stakeholders on board to facilitate market linkages, access to finance, and access to inputs, farming inputs, and also a lot of new technologies, irrigation. We have a program with a solar mill. So it's all about creating these kind of partnerships with the private sector, with the county, and benefit from each other's capacities and expertise for the benefit and development of the communities.
At the nutrition point of view, we have to make sure that we are also embracing, dietary diversity, which can only come by also embracing agroecological practices, because that means that even our farms are going to be diversified. Because as we know that looking at the nutrition part of it, malnutrition in form of, for example, undernutrition, and when you look at chronic malnutrition like stunting, yes, we are at 18% right now, but we are not out of the woods yet, because you're looking at, for example, at every 100 children, about 20 of them are stunted. And we're talking about stunting, we are thinking about the brain development of these children. We are thinking about how we're going to develop the GDP of this country. And when you look at stunting, really, one of the root causes is, micronutrients deficiencies, yeah? And deep in that, really, is the kind of foods we have. If we don't have a varied diet, then that means that that diet is deficient in micronutrients. And of importance are micronutrients, for example, like zinc, we have iron, and just taking it back to the issue of agroecology and having this, farming with, like producing with nature. When we don't do that, then we affect, like climate and all that. And when climate change happens, one of the things that really gets hit are the micronutrients of importance, and that is zinc and even the iron levels. They go down by even like 10%. So what does that mean? We are producing food, but it's not nourishing the future generations. So we are going to lose big. We may think that by investing in nutrition, we are not doing much, but when you start looking at how much money we're going to lose by not investing in nutrition, then I think as nutrition is something that we really need to look at. And at APHRC, we look at all that also, because we know that when we embrace agroecological practices, we are also trying to also sort out the issues of micronutrient deficiencies, which is a big problem in this country, both for the children and even the pregnant mothers. And remember that, life begins right in the, in the womb. And when things go wrong there, then we may not really be able to fix these things even when the child comes out, because they've already been affected. And big on that is their cognitive development. Yes.
Climate change is definitely one of the key factors in the crisis of our time. In Kenya, it's a matter of droughts, but also floods, and the generally erratic rainfalls, the unpredictable rainfall patterns that give the challenges to the farmers, but also the livestock keepers in the pastoralist regions. How to predict the seasons and how to deal with this situation. So it's a matter of giving the right knowledge, giving the right information at the right time, and the capacities that are needed to cope with these climate challenges. Otherwise, we see also climate being exacerbating the conflicts that we often, underlying conflicts that we see. And it's definitely one of the key challenges in our time that we try to address.
There are a number of challenges that community face, and I'm going to talk about three. One is when we talk about affordability. Food prices have skyrocketed over the years, over the months. Every single month we find that the food prices are actually going higher and higher. And especially the nutritious food products, these keep on going higher and higher. And these really make them out of reach to many community members. So that's number one. Affordability really makes it become very difficult to get. The second one is in terms of issues to do with access. Access has been a challenge, especially whereby you find that the value chain, or when you're looking at the whole chain from production all the way to when it gets to the market. So the supply chain is broken in many aspects, and this can also be one of the things that make the nutritious, fresh food not be accessible to many citizens. And then the third aspect of it is in terms of the nutritive value of this food. It's very difficult these days to get food that is really high in nutritive value. And this also makes it very difficult in terms of how can the community members be able to get this food that they really need.
In my view, some of the systemic barriers are policies that do not align with our culture as a people. For instance, recently we had a litigation on the seed bill that tried to even limit farmers from sharing their seeds. This is something they have done from time immemorial. We believe some of these policies are retrogressive, and we should work on them to ensure that we eliminate some of these systemic barriers.
For Kenyans, I think I want us to remember that food is our right, and it is not a privilege. Why do I say this? Because food, like having adequate food and protection from hunger, zero hunger, is enshrined in our constitution. Looking at Article 43 and Article 10, they really show us very clearly that as a nation we have to make sure that our people are free from hunger. And also, as they're eating, they should eat in a more dignified way. So we should not think that by the government making sure that we have food which is safe and of good quality and we are free from hunger, that they are doing, a favor to us. No, it is a right for you as a citizen of this country, because that is why the Constitution of 2010 enshrines it very well in it. And then looking at, like our leaders, I think it's important that leaders really look at ways in which they can be able to invest in food systems that are resilient, that are safe, that really make sure that we are able to nourish our people, and also making sure that even whatever method that we are championing for are able to also nourish the future.
Citizen oversight is important, and this emanates from our constitution, the requirement for public participation. And therefore we believe that when citizens engage, we will have budgets that respond to the needs of the farmers and the food consumers in our country. Therefore we believe that the citizens must be engaged, and accountability will ensure that we spend our resources in a manner that gives us food on our table at an affordable price.
And also looking at it, I think we have to work hand in hand. The policymakers working together with the communities, working together with the researchers, because that is where sometimes I feel that we don't do very well, because everyone is doing something on their own. But we have to make sure that we work together, because all these things about food, they affect everyone. Because if, for example, you have hungry people who end up, having children who are malnourished, who end up not, having, growing well, and that means that they will even be sick all the time. So even as leaders, you're actually going to lose, because what happens? You'll be spending a lot of money taking care of their health in the hospitals, and also if you want them to be able to contribute to development activities, they will be too weak to do that. So we have to really think about the issue of food and how we produce this food. It's very, very important. Yes.
Hand in hand is a phrase that means a lot to me, but also to the Civil Society Alliance here in Kenya, because it's a call to action that requires that we work with a multi-sectoral approach to ensure that there is sustainable food systems here in Kenya. And the things that we look at when we're talking about hand in hand is in terms of ensuring that we better production systems, because with production systems, it means that we will have sustainable food systems in Kenya. But it is not just a better production system. It's about ensuring that whatever we produce is also of high nutritive value. And we're not just talking about nutritive value. It also means that the production systems enhances the environment, because climate change here is here with that, but then how then do we also ensure that we have a better environment? The overall thing that we're looking at when we're talking about hand in hand is in terms of how then do we also ensure that the community have a better overall health.
For me, the aspect of leadership is extremely important. We can only win the fight against hunger when we are agreeing on that objective and making it a real priority throughout the society, throughout the different parts of the country. We should disregard the different ministries and the interests of each and every stakeholder. We can only, when we work together and accept together that this is one of the most important priorities for Kenya, but also in the world, only then, when we bring in together our capacities, we can have a chance to eradicate hunger in the world. And we saw a very positive trend until 2015, 2016. All over the world, hunger rates dropped. But since then, we see a trend that has reversed. Just today, as we are talking, Welthungerhilfe has published the new Global Hunger Index 2025. And it shows clearly that the trend has now fully reversed. In the last couple of years, we talked about we have reached a plateau, right? We were not progressing further, but now it's even reversing. So the hunger figures are on the rise. It has something to do with the conflicts in the world, but also I would say that we lost a bit the priority as communities, as a world, as leaders, to prioritize the fight against hunger.
There's need for collaboration between the civil society, the government, and the research institutions. And I'm going to talk about three major aspects that I believe needs to happen. The first one is in terms of collaboration on co-creation. Co-creation is critical because it provides context, and context is critical in terms of ensuring that there is trust among the partners who are working on a particular area of interest. If we have co-creation between the civil societies, the government, and the research institutions, it will mean that we bring the best out of the three. And when the best meet the best, then things will actually be able to work out very well. The second aspect of it is in terms of how do we translate research into action. This requires multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary approach, and this is where now the three entities, that is the government, the civil society, and also the research institutions also come in, whereby the research institutions will be able to generate the evidence that we need. The government will be able to bring in the aspect of policy, but also in terms of aspect of implementation. And then the civil society will be able to bring in the aspect of the community voices, but also bring in terms of how that we also bring in the global aspect into what's happening in the country. The third aspect of it is in terms of being able to provide the much needed resources, be it financial resources, be it materials, but also be it equipment. So I believe that whenever civil societies, whenever the government and the research institutions collaborate in those three aspects, then at the end of the day, we will be able to meet the needs of the community, because the three huge institutions, they serve the community. And this collaboration will be one of the things that will be needed in terms of how then do we ensure that the lives of the communities are transformed.
Our approach is trying to be holistic. We know that we cannot only approach the fight against hunger from one side. So we are trying to work on the capacities of the communities, for example, through trainings on techniques, farming practices, on how to mitigate with the climate change situation. But we also need interventions, access to water, making more water available for drinking, but also for agricultural production. We need more engagement and investments from the public side. So we try to create examples and show examples how it might be possible to improve the situation and then create opportunities for investments from the private sector side, but also from the public investments, from the public sector, to ride on those experiences and roll them out to a wider community.
My call to action on this year's World Food Day is on two major fronts. One, to the leaders, is let us provide the political goodwill that is required to enhance policy implementation. But not just policy implementation, is climate smart policy implementation. So that will be number one. And then the second aspect to the leaders is in terms of let us provide climate smart financing, because this will enhance resilience of the community members, but also provide the much needed financial muscle for community members, but also farmers, to be able to enhance production. And then the third aspect of it is that the leaders need to be champions of transformative food systems, because a number of us look at the leaders in terms of what they are championing. So that will be my word to the leaders. To the community members is in terms of let us rally ourselves and hold our leaders accountable, because then this will push them in terms of enhancing production systems, but also ensuring that they live to their commitments. And then number two is adoption of climate smart food systems, because this will ensure that we produce the right food, the right quantity in the right way that we need. But also, lastly, is let us practice what we say and what we want the leaders to be able to follow, because at some point we can also direct leaders to what we need as a community and as a society.
For the leaders, we look forward to them implementing or actually enacting a right to food bill that we've been pushing for through the Right to Food Coalition. For the citizens, we must continue to participate in our governance systems, especially budgeting, to ensure that we allocate enough resources for agriculture, especially looking at the CADAP requirement of 10% allocation going to agriculture.
Looking at the annual festival that APHRC holds, I think it's a very good platform because you see, you bring everyone together at the same table. You bring researchers, you bring the communities, you bring the policy makers, you bring civil society, all these people, you bring them to the table so they can be able to share their experiences, they can be able to ask each other questions, and you can actually see things working. You can actually see even what some of the researchers are doing, what the communities are doing, and you can all bring people to the table, because we have a big challenge here, because sometimes we have gaps in terms of the research we are doing is not translating to policy, it's not translating into practice. But when you bring all these people together, you bring them to the table and they can be able to appreciate what each and every one of them does. And also, we are also trying to break this siloed way of doing things. Researchers doing things on their own way, policy makers doing their things their own way, farmers doing things on their own way. So we bring everyone at the table so that we can have a conversation, because the issue about food is an issue that affects researchers, it affects policy makers, it affects the common mwananchi. So we are bringing everyone to the table so that we can come up with solutions, so that we can be able to link all this, so that we come up with this beautiful story. Because whatever research that we're coming up with, we have to see how it is translating into solutions, how it is changing lives. When the farmer comes there and shows you how they're growing their beautiful vegetables, their beautiful fruits, and even how they've been able to change lives, then you start to see all these things coming together into a beautiful story.